Have you ever thought about the day in which we take the Lord's Supper? The day on which we take the Lord's Supper? In the book of Exodus, when God brings the final plague, which is the death of the firstborn on Egypt, in order to get Pharaoh and the Egyptians to release the Israelites, every year they're to celebrate the Passover, which is where they sacrifice the lamb and sprinkle its blood on the doorpost and over the lintel of the door, but it's on the same day. It's basically the same day in which they came out of Egypt. So on that day they celebrate God's freeing them from Egypt. And every year when they take that, of course, their children will ask, why are we taking this? What does this mean? And then the parents get to tell them, well, God with a mighty hand brought us out of the land of Egypt, and explain to them the beginning of them as a nation. We don't take the Lord's Supper on the day Jesus died. If you follow through the Gospels, Jesus comes in, and in this big triumphal entry, and the leaders begin to become suspicious that he's going to get too popular, and so they begin to plot, and finally they get Pilate to put him to death. And it's on Friday of that week, just before and of course their days start in the evening, so the next day starts, and so somewhere around Friday, just a little bit after the 3 hours of darkness was over at 3 o'clock, somewhere around 4 or 5, Jesus dies. And Pilate has agreed, and all of the Roman governors in the area had always agreed that they would take any prisoners down on before the Sabbath, so as not to desecrate the Sabbath for the Jews. And so the Sabbath is about ready to take place at 6 p.m. on that Friday. So they take Jesus down. It's then on Sunday, on the first day of the week, the Lord's Day, as we call it, that he's raised from the dead. And that's the day we take the Lord's Supper. So it is the day of victory that we take it on, not the day in which it actually occurred, like they did in the Old Testament with various festivals and so forth. It is also an opportunity for us to teach our children, to teach those who might not know as much as they should about why we take it, that this is the day in which God demonstrated his faithfulness. In Romans chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, Paul says that Jesus was declared to be the Son of God with power, with proof, by the resurrection from the dead. And so the resurrection shows and demonstrates that Jesus is truly who he says he is, the Son of God. But it also, since we take it on the Lord's Supper on the day of resurrection, it's the day in which it demonstrates to us that that's the day of proof, the day of evidence, the day of declaration. So Jesus' giving of his body as a sacrifice for us, the shedding of his blood, which is the new covenant in his blood, and his redemption for many, taken on the day of resurrection, is the proof that we need. Because you see, the resurrection really is the final piece of evidence that God has been faithful in doing everything in order to bring about redemption, in order to bring about us being taken out of the world and being brought into his family once again in his kingdom. And so we take the Lord's Supper on the day of victory, the day of proof, the day of evidence, to remind us that this is not a blind sort of thing, but it is the day in which we have full proof that Jesus is the Son of God, that he died for us, taking our place in death, shed his blood, and that by that we have redemption, and we are brought out of the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of his beloved Son. And so as you take it today, remember, it's the day of victory. And so the death of Jesus and the shedding of his blood gives us what we need because of his resurrection.